Hey all, my name is Paul Borosky and I am the owner of Quality Business Plan, and what I'd like to do today is introduce you all to my advanced business plan example. And so what I'm going to do is just pretty much introduce myself and then dive into an example of my advanced business plan. What I'm really trying to accomplish with this video is to set your expectations as to the quantity of information that you're going to get when you get the business plan, show you my writing style, and show you the financial model that I use in order for me to go ahead and write up these kinds of plans. All right, so let's go ahead and start at the beginning. Then once we get to the end, we'll stop. Experience, a little bit about me, then we'll talk about the advanced business plan. I am a professional writer, love to write. I've published many books on Amazon. And also, I am an adjunct professor, subject matter expert for both business and finance. I love to write, but my passion is finance, financial models. Give me some numbers and I can make them sing and dance, kind of a deal. All right, so enough about me. Let's go ahead and examine and take a look at my wonderful little advanced business plan. So for the advanced business plan, what I like to do is when I start it off, the title page is going to have the company's name, and it's also going to have a logo if you supply that logo to me. If not, I'll go ahead and put in a generic logo on the first page of the advanced business plan. Underneath that, I'm going to go ahead and put my name and my credentials, add a little bit of credibility to the business plan. If you don't want that credibility, I would be absolutely delighted to remove my name and credentials. You will not hurt my feelings. Don't hurt to ask. Next, I'm going to go ahead and put the date that I go ahead and start or modify or complete the business plan. Next page is going to be the table of contents. In the table of contents, I'm going to give the reader an opportunity to go to their sections that most piques their interest. We're going to have the confidentiality statement. We're going to have the executive summary, industry analysis, and so on. So it's a nice, real nice structure, real nice layout for the advanced plan. For this plan, typically it runs about 25 to 30 pages. For this example right here, we're pushing about 29 to 30. Next page is going to be the confidentiality and disclosure statement, pretty much telling the reader it's not theirs, don't take it, don't touch, just read. So this just pretty much explains to them this is your property, don't take your business plan, don't take your ideas, kind of a deal. Next page is going to be the owner statement for the to the reader. This is the only writing I would ask you to do if you want to do it. This is an optional page. I can remove it if you don't want to do any writing. This section right here just gives you the opportunity to introduce yourself to the reader and just tell them, who you are, what you do, why you do it, and some of your passions and your desires as to why you want to start your business, expand your business, or so on. Also, it's a great little reminder to you as to why you're starting the business. A little bit of motivation right there. Next part of it is going to be the executive summary. The way I structure my business plans is the business plans are actually two separate entities. The first entity is going to be the executive summary, which is 1 to 2 pages, and the second segment is going to be the actual business plan itself. When I write the executive summary, I literally take information from the business plan, copy and paste it, and put it into the executive summary. The executive summary is going to touch on the highlights of the business plan, the company summary, the target market, the competitive advantages, the funding request, the financials. So this is going to give the reader an overview of what to expect when they read the business plan. A lot of investors, heck, all they want to see is the executive summary. However, in order to write the executive summary, you got to write the business plan. So you get both when you do this, and I do make sure they are in alignment. I'm not going to introduce any topics or talk about any aspects of the business in the executive summary that does not have details in the business plan to support the statements made in the executive summary. Some of the topics covered in the executive summary is going to be the company summary, primary target market, competitive advantages, financial highlights, and then the funding request. And I do have it in a specific structure where I introduce your company, excuse me, tell about the target market, show the competitive advantages. Then I talk about the finances and how much money you're going to make, what your profits are going to be. Finally, I then introduce the funding, how much you need to make this get this party started, kind of a deal. All right, the next section is going to be the actual business plan. Starts on page 7 usually. On this section right here, we're going to talk about the company description, go into the company summary. Then from there, I'm going to go ahead and talk about your products. I'm not going to go into great detail into your product description. I'm just pretty much you just tell them what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and why you're going to do it. Next is going to be some more detailed information about your primary target market. Who is going to be your main buyer? If you do a dog walking business, then people who have pets within a 5-mile radius of your organization may be your target market. So we'll identify a target market, and I'll talk about that briefly. Next is going to be the competitive advantage. This is going to be a visual representation, and it will be the identical visual representation that I put in the executive summary. It's going to be short and sweet, maybe for 1 to 2 sentences for each of the components here. Location discussion is I'm going to talk about the location, where you're going to be, maybe put a little picture in here showing it on the map. And then I'm going to talk about why you chose this location. It's accessibility to major thoroughfares, if that's important. If you're a home-based business and you do a lot of work on the internet, this location is not going to be too in-depth. If you are a trucking organization, then this is going to be more in-depth, because the logistics of the location are going to be more important as aligned to your business needs. Next is going to be industry analysis. For the industry analysis, I am going to go ahead and first introduce the company, introduce the industry that you're going to be competing on a national level. I do get this information from IBIS World. They are a third-party researching company, one of the country's leading third-party marketing organizations. So I do pull the information from that entity. And I also summarize our information. I can't just obviously cut and paste and put that information in there. It would be plagiarism as a no-no. So I will go ahead and summarize the information that I find in the report. I'll summarize into a paragraph or two up here. And then I'm going to summarize the revenue and growth expectations of the industry that we are targeting. So this section right here is going to be about a page. Next is going to be the SWOT analysis. For the SWOT analysis, we're going to talk about some of your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats from the perspective of the organization. In the advanced business plan, I am going to do a brief competitor analysis. I'm going to go ahead and identify a couple competitors. And for this one right here, it's going to be the organization, give you some information on the website, location, hours of operation if pertinent, and then a summary, just a brief summary of the competitor, where they are, what they do, how long they've been in business, whatever information that's available for me to pull off the internet. And then I'll do that for a second competitor as well. This section right here is approximately 1 page. Next section is going to be the organization and management. I'm going to introduce the management, who the owner is going to be, the structure of the organization, whether it's going to be a limited liability corporation, a corporation partnership, so on and so forth. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the job responsibilities. We're going to talk about the CEO, the CFO, and whoever the employees are going to be. Reason for this section right here is to convey to the reader that you have a conceptual understanding of how the business is going to operate and what each person who's going to be working in your organization, what they do briefly. It's not going to be an in-depth examination, but it's just going to show that you know what their job responsibilities are, and you've got every aspect of your company covered from the employee perspective. Next section is going to be the organizational structure. The organizational structure is pretty much a chain of command. The finance tutors are going to report to the manager, who's going to report to the CEO. So that's just a breakdown of how this is going to play out. It also gives a good visual representation of the different employees that are going to be in your organization. Next section is going to be the marketing and sales. This is pretty much a template that I use, and the reason I use a template for this and I modify it with your information is because there's only so many different ways you can talk about signage and cold calling and email advertising and social media and websites. It's pretty straightforward, and even if you do customize this information in a marketing and sales, do you really want to put that information out there in a business plan? And usually the answer is no. So what I do is I've got a template that I use, and I do modify it. I customize it to fit your needs and to show that is your information. It's about a page as well. Next part is going to be the funding request. There are specific attributes that need to be identified in every funding request in order to answer the most basic questions that a lender or investor are going to ask. Those basic questions are going to be, how much money do you need? Where's the money going to go? And how am I going to get paid? So those are, and what are the terms that you're looking for? So all that information I succinctly summarize in the first 3 to 4 sentences of that paragraph. So this is a very structured, funding approach, but it does answer all the questions. Not only that, but it gives you a lot of wiggle room too, because I don't use the only specific here is going to be the dollar amount you need. The term, if it's a loan, the term is going to be a range. If you're looking for interest rates, it's going to be a range. It's going to be the percentage of ownership. If you're going to take on an investor, it's going to say that it's going to be negotiated later. How are you going to pay your dividends? Well, they're going to be quarterly or annually. We can talk about that. Next is going to be the categories of, you do want to specifically state a dollar amount up here to show that you know exactly how much you need. But when you get down here into this right here, you want to break these categories. You want to be a little bit general. You want to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. You want to show that you know precisely how much money you need, but you don't want to lock yourself into specifics, and you want to give them general dollar amounts down here in the categories. For example, working capital, uniform supplies, decor, uniform, miscellaneous licenses, and so on. So you're telling them, where the money is going to be spent, but you're giving yourself a little wiggle room for that. And the next thing I'm going to do for the advanced plan is break this up into startup costs. I'm going to show, where this money is going to as percentages. And the next step is the financial projections. Once we start getting into the advanced business plan, I start getting a little crazy with my financial projections. The good thing about my craziness with the financial projections is that I walk through the reader step by step where these numbers are coming from. We're just not grabbing numbers out of the air, putting some lipstick on them and slapping them on the page. So the way that I've structured my financial projections, and financial projections, yes, are the most complicated aspect of the business plan for the most part. So what I do when I do my financial projections is I start with highlighting it. Here's the information that we found through the financial modeling, the financial projection process. So I'll give it a nice little highlight here, and then I'll give a pretty little picture here highlighting the revenues, the costs, and the profits that are expected from the organization on a 5-year scale. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tell the reader what assumptions we use when making the financial projections. Now, let's be honest. I've been doing business plans for about 10 years now. I have no idea how many business plans I'm going to sell tomorrow, let alone next week, next month, next year. I just don't know. However, I can do financial models on my business because there are specific assumptions that I can state, and from that foundation, I can go ahead and anticipate what my sales are, my costs are, and so on and so forth. So in this section right here, I'm going to set the foundation for the financial projections by laying out the assumptions that I'm going to use in the financial model. Once I'm done with the assumptions, then I'm going to go into daily sales. I'm going to tell the reader explicitly how much money what are the daily sales from day one we open the doors, or what are the weekly sales for week 1, or what are the monthly sales for month 1. I'm going to start with some kind of a foundation for revenues, and I'm going to then, once I get that foundation, I'm going to show what the daily sales are. Percentage of sales, this could be your variable cost. Number of sales for this example, this is a hotel, 1 bedroom, 32 rooms. Then I'll do the price, the cost. At the end of the day, I'm going to know what my revenues are for each segment of the business that I'm selling, each product or service, and then I'll be able to summarize it right here. The next aspect is I'm going to then start talking about some monthly costs. I'm going to start talking about my monthly labor. I'll identify what the owner's salary is going to be, and then we'll talk about the managers and employees. We'll break that out a little bit, show the number of employees, the rate of pay, the hours, and so on. Once that's done, then we're going to go ahead and break out the fixed costs, show what the monthly anticipated costs are going to be from utilities, insurance, advertising, all the way down to the other. The other is my favorite. It's a catch-all. There's just no way to know what other monthly fixed costs are going to come about through operations. So thus, the other is a great catch-all for that segment. Finally, I'm going to go ahead and do a nice little graph right here. Monthly fixed costs. Going to break it out into percentages. And once we get that foundation set with the assumptions, and then I've broken out the major aspects of the financials that we're going to use with growth rates, I'm then going to go ahead and get into your profit and loss for the first year. The way that I do my profit and loss statements is I do break it into quarters. So for this year one right here, it's going to be month 1 through 3 with quarter 1. Then we're going to get month 4 through 6 with quarter 2. Then we're going to go month 7 through 9 with quarter 3. And then month 10 through 12 with quarter 4. And then once I'm done with that, that's going to give me all the information I'm going to need to do your first year projections, which are going to go right here. And then finally, I'm going to take these projections right here, add some growth rates, put in my beautiful little financial model, and project the information from year 1 all the way to year 4. Finally, I'm going to then go ahead and do the balance sheet. The balance sheet just shows the assets and liabilities and owner equity for an organization at a specific point in time. The specific point in time is going to be at the end of each year. So the balance sheet is going to show the assets and liabilities and owner equity for year 1 through year 5. And this part right here, now we're going to really start exploring some other avenues for the financials that some investors or lenders like to see. Break-even analysis, I'm going to go ahead and conduct a break-even analysis for year 1 through year 5. All the break-even analysis does, it takes your fixed cost, figures out what your gross margin as a percentage is going to be, and then we're able to calculate what your dollar amount revenues need to be in order to cover your fixed cost. I then go ahead and graph that information down here, the findings. Next part is going to be the cash budget. Cash budget, this is new to my business plans. All too often I have not employees, but business owners that want to know when they're going to need additional funding into the future. The cash budget is going to tell you that. The cash budget is going to take your revenues, it's going to break it into the sales, and it's going to figure out when you're actually going to get the cash, deduct your fixed cost and your variable cost. And then at the end of the day, it's going to go ahead and start with a beginning cash, and then it's going to identify what your ending cash is for each month. And then we'll identify what the minimum cash balance is needed. And then we'll be from this information right here of identifying cash receipts, cash disbursements, or money that you have to pay out every month. And then based on the beginning cash and the ending cash and the minimum cash balance, we're going to be able to identify what your cash needs are going to be at any given month over the next 12 months based on our projections. And so if, for example, if you start running short in month 4 or 5, then you can start planning for additional financing at that point in time. I do cover a 1-year cash budget projection. This is month 7 through 12. And then again, the same process. This is an excess cash to invest for every single month. And then finally, for this plan right here, I do also do a best case scenario and a worst case scenario. For the best case scenario and the worst case scenario, I do limit it to adjusting the revenues. If your revenues are 10 or 15 or 20% higher, or if the revenues are 10% lower. So I do focus just specifically for best case scenario and worst case scenario on revenues and cost of goods sold. But for this example right here, these are the best case scenarios for the revenues and profits. And then the next part is going to be the worst case. And this is the worst case scenario for, again, the revenues and the profits. And the fixed costs usually are going to stay the same. And that's why I don't adjust those. All right, so hopefully this information was helpful. And if y'all are interested in getting some more information on the advanced business plan, please pick up the phone, give me a call, send me a text message, send me an email. Be absolutely delighted to assist. Thanks for watching.